Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Foreign Secretary, for being with us today. So, you had 14 years in opposition, you've been in post for a year now. What we've seen throughout the year is you reduced ODA spend from 0.5 down to 0.3, but I'm still not hearing any cohesive vision for where you want to go. Now, you said you'll go do a line-by-line scrutiny and that this will be coming out in the next couple of months, but I'm still not hearing it. What's been happening for the last year? I think to follow on from that, what we do know is that a significant chunk of that money that will be left will be going to the Home Office to be spent on asylum hotels. What view do you have of that being a car-side commitment? We've obviously heard the announcement from the government that it will be ending by the end of this Parliament. What process and what equity will you have with the Home Office to make sure that practice does stop?
Well, I've got to refute your first question in terms of what we've been doing over the last year. 15 million children this year have been immunised. We've just pledged 1.25 billion to Gavi. On women's and girls and on women's rights, over 100 countries have been channelling 56 million.
Foreign Secretary, look, we've been over all of those figures.
On climate and nature.
I've spoken to the Minister
behind those
responsible as
figures
well,
are people.
and there is no cohesive vision.
You gave the impression that nothing was happening this year in your question.
I'm not saying that, I'm saying there is no vision.
Well, I've set out the vision.
We haven't heard it.
Well,
I haven't heard it from the previous Minister either.
Well, I listened to Baroness Chapman, and I think she did give a strong vision. She said that we are moving from donor to investor. We will be investing in the technical skills that countries say that they want from us. For example, when I was with President Ruto a few weeks ago, he was thanking us for the work that we've done to encourage better trade between countries in Africa, and he thinks there's more that we can do. We are not departing from obligations on health, and clearly Britain's a leader on health.
Here's another problem. Can you understand how difficult that is to communicate to the UK public about how their taxpayers' money is being spent?
Well, you'll appreciate that sadly, when you look at public attitude to development, it has not been in a brilliant place. That's not under this government, that's under the last government.
This is the point I'm making, Foreign Secretary. You've had a year to come up with this vision. You had 14 years in opposition to come up with this vision. All we've seen is a reduction, and going to the question now around asylum hotels, a large chunk of what is left is going to the Home Office.
Well, you know that we inherited a situation that we did not support, where a lion's share of development spend was being spent in country. Since we've come to office, less money is being spent in country. My colleagues in the Home Office, and led by Yvette Cooper, have been able to reduce, I think, from 83% to 77%, am I right?
So we've said that it's going to go down to 0% by 2029. So what's that process?
Can I finish the point, please,
of course.
Mr. Reid? We have reduced the numbers in a year being spent on hotels that we inherited from the Tories. We've reduced the numbers, and we've got a deal from the Treasury that means that we now have stability in the development budget, and we will not be affected by decisions made in relation to hotels going forward. That's what's been achieved under this government, because the last government did not put it off.
So how's it going to happen? How, as the FCDO Secretary, how will you monitor that with the Home Office?
Well, the thing I'm principally concerned with is that my budget is stable and it's not affected by paying hotel bills in this country. I've pulled that off. It's also the case that the Home Secretary is absolutely committed to reducing the number of asylum seekers in hotels. She has brought down those numbers in the last year. She's got more to do. And as she does that, do you expect the Foreign Secretary to go back to the Treasury and ask for increased funds? Of course you do. And yes, I'll be knocking on the door, if that's the implication of your question.
Okay, so the follow-on from that then, so this will be split equity across the FCDO and the Home Office. People that do come here illegally, where will they go?
Sorry, following on from that bit.
So at the moment, if people come here illegally, they are put in hotels, and that's paid for through the ODA budget, which goes to the Home Office. If you're saying, and the government's saying, that that's going to be reduced down to zero by the end of this Parliament, 2029. Where do you envisage people that will come here illegally? Where will they go?
That gets us into a much lengthier discussion that you should probably make to the Home Secretary, not to me.
But it's split equity across the FCDO.
It's not a split equity. I've just said we've now got stability.
Okay, I would disagree heavily with that.
That was the deal that I got in the spending review, because the last government did not strike that deal. I got that deal to give ODA spending stability, for us not to be at the mercy of asylum spend. I got that deal. But yes, it is the case that the Home Secretary now has to reduce the numbers. That's a big job, but she's done a great job in the last year.
But the people who come here illegally are coming from international countries. So how does the FCDO not have equity in that process?
Well, I've also, if you're asking about wider FCDO equities on migration, of course, we play a big role on returns, and we are attempting to increase returns. Countries like Pakistan, returns have gone up in the last year. I announced earlier on this year migration sanctions. We'll be coming forward with that very, very shortly. There's work that we do upstream that's come up briefly. I've seen great work in Egypt, in Tunisia. When I talk about economic development and the work we can do so people are prepared to stay in country, that's an important role that our diplomats and development experts play in my department. So there's a lot that we contribute to this agenda to bring down the numbers. Yes.
Okay, and so final question on that. So the number will go down to 0% in asylum hotels, and the approach that you just laid out will make sure that no one comes here illegally anymore and that no one will be housed here. Is that your points? So purely on return deals and working upstream, that's going to be enough?
If I may, Mr. Reid, I think the implication of your question is a soundbite. I don't think
it is. This is a very serious issue.
I don't think the government's saying that there will be zero people.
Okay, so where will the people go then?
That's not what I'm saying. But you know as well as I do that we have brought the numbers down in the last year. You know that the last government left a bloating bill that was rising. You know our commitments to deal with irregular migration. You know the responsibilities that my department has in relation to returns, in relation to work upstream. I announced migration sanctions and I've brought stability to the department. I think I've done a good job in the last year. There is more to do, and that will be led from the Home Office. And I'm sorry that you're feeling a bit raw about the last government's record.
No.
I would be if I were you as well.
Foreign Secretary, if I can just reconfirm that our role is to scrutinise ODA, and I think we're drifting slightly off ODA. Any more questions?
It's a big ODA spend, so I think it's very fair to ask these questions.
And it's fair for me to be robust in reply.
Any more?
No.
Alice and then Monica.
Application, I think we all recognise we were left with a pretty terrible legacy in the backlog in the hotel, so I do recognise the costs are coming down. One thing I haven't been quite clear on now that the FCDO has moved to the spender of last resort is if the numbers come down and the spend on asylum comes down faster than expected, does that money definitely come back to the ODA budget? Like what's the agreement on that with the Home Office or Treasury?
It doesn't automatically come back to us. The price for stability is that I accepted that it wouldn't automatically come back to us, but I have made it clear to the committee that I would be making the case for increased spend, and making the case for increased spend, particularly in relation to development. You have that as my commitment, and I think you would be, and I would hope that any future Foreign Secretary, that was their undertaking, and they sought to do that. And you heard from the Prime Minister when we made the change following increased defence spending that we were absolutely clear that we were not departing on our commitments to development spend. We do want to see it rise as the fiscal circumstances allow, and so of course I will be making that case in future spending and fiscal occasions.
Monica?
Foreign Secretary, on what you've just said, the commitment therefore by the British government to ODA, overseas development spent overseas in 27-28, as ICAI have pointed out, is 0.24%. So it's not 0.3%, it's 0.24. That's the projection.
I saw this yesterday and I just don't recognise those numbers. I think ICAI are having to make a call on how they see refugee numbers rising or falling. What I'm going on is that the Home Secretary has brought those numbers down in the last year. I recognise there's more to do, but I'm standing by my colleague and her commitment to reduce the amount of asylum seekers in hotels.
Monica, thank you. Brian.